Decorating Pages is a podcast dedicated to taking you behind the scenes of the designs of your favorite TV shows and films. Each episode, I'll be sharing design stories from some of Hollywood's most famous sets. Interviews from set decorators, production designers, directors, and actors about creating the look of TV and film, about their design inspirations, and stories that take sets from page to screen. Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. How's you doing? Oh, it is cold and rainy in LA lately, and it's been nice to sleep in, not gonna lie. Well, not that much because I got the puppy and I got the kids, but like pretending to sleep in or pretending to take naps is nice. Yeah, and then I got the boys into like, let's have a movie night or they don't like to take nap on mommy days. So then I said like, oh, let's watch a movie. We watched Superman 2, Superman 3, which probably wasn't good for their age. And I did actually fall asleep in that, so I forget with Richard Pryor what happened. I hope they're not scarred by that. I think they'll be all right. But all day long, constantly just humming that Superman song now. So I've really done it to myself. But we are knee deep in award season. It's almost coming to an end with this Sunday being Oscars, and one of the awards that happened in the past week were the costume awards, which I always find fantastic because of the costume designers on that red carpet. They are just giving it and they love it. And they're out and about, and there was a lot of Naked Without Us going on. Their campaign to be paid more. Go girls, go boys, go everyone, get paid, do it. I hope you get it. So some of their winners, period film was Elvis, period television was The Crown, contemporary film was Glass Onion, contemporary TV was Wednesday. Excellent short form design, Yeahs. Lizzo won, fantasy film, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Fantasy was House of Dragon, so yeah, beautiful. I love House of Dragon costumes. Man, the details in those costumes are unreal. Which brings me to what I'm watching. This week, this is crazy to me because the Chris Rock special came out on Netflix called Selective Outrage, and after watching it, I can't believe that there's not more hype around it because he really talks about what happened at the Oscars with Will Smith hitting him. And I thought there would be more like, oh, he's finally talking about it type articles out there, but I couldn't really find anything. He's always poignant, always makes you think, and he's clever, and I've always loved his comedy, and he's very honest of like, yeah, that I loved Will Smith, and now I got Summertime ringing in my ear, like things like that. It's fantastic. His humor is so well crafted. I just really enjoyed it and was super happy that he acknowledged it and was adult about it. So that's on Netflix. I recommend that to everyone because he's always hilarious. Did a little throwback, did Dog Day Afternoon. I don't know why. I love that, what is it, John Cazabel? God, I don't know. You know the guy. He was in Deer Hunter and Fredo. Basically, I'm talking about Fredo. Poor thing. He died of cancer. I think he was engaged to Meryl Streep at the time, I believe, or they had broken up, but yeah, I think lung cancer or something. What a phenomenal actor in the 70s and had so many great roles, and then, it's a sin. Dog Day Afternoon, I was really focusing on how much they're sweating, because remember they turned the air off in the bank trying to like suss them out, and like, man, Al Pacino was just sweating the whole film. I didn't remember before how great Chris Sarandon is in that movie, his transsexual lover. He's really good and really subtle. I just found his performance really good this time around when I watched it. Production design by Charles Bailey and set decorated by Robert Drumheller. It's such a great movie. I don't know. And I forgot to look up if the guy got out, because at the end they said he got 20 years, which means he would have been out in like late 90s or something. So it's crazy. I am watching, of course, The Last of Us, production designed by John Peno and set decorated by Paul Healy. And I'm watching The Mandalorian, and I have two really poignant points to make. First of all, Pedro Pascal is basically the same person in both shows. He's caring after a little child. He's caring after little Yoda, or Gregor, whatever his name is. And then he's taking care of Ellie in The Last of Us. So he's kind of playing the same role in it. And he's great. He's great. I love him. I love him. The other thing is, in Mandalorian, I don't really think it's him. Are you telling me he's standing around in a mask for every scene? He doesn't have like a double that stands in for him and then they just throw his voice in? There's no way he's standing there the whole time. I don't believe that it's him. Especially the fight scenes and all that shit. I don't know. I tried to look if it was like his walk, but I couldn't really tell. But yeah, that occurred to me last night. I was watching the first episode of The Mandalorian season 3, which the little summary of it in the beginning is the Mandalorian sets out on a important adventure. Well, no shit. Wasn't that like season 1? Why is that the tagline for season 3? Like, it didn't make sense to me. But yeah, he's the same character in both shows, basically. And I don't think it's him. That's all I'm saying. I still like it. I still like the show. I still think it's fantastically done. I was trying to look it up. I think the production designer this season is Doug Chang. And then set decorator Amanda Moss Serino. I'm not sure. I might be saying that wrong. But I looked it up and I think they only had season 2 credits in there. But yeah, that's what I came up with. Now, in other news, to put another thing on my plate, me and some friends, I have some friends, we're going to have a film club. And isn't that fun? It's like we're in the 60s or something. It's like we're in college film school. But a couple of friends of mine were thinking about, oh, that's a great movie. Oh, I hadn't seen that. Oh, I really love this. Oh, this makes me think of that, and blah, blah, blah. So me and some friends are going to do like 2 movies a month and then probably just drink and have some discussion about it. I don't know how it's going to go and how long it's going to last. And we're kind of getting really into it because none of them are working. So I'm sure once we're all working, we'll be like, what? I don't have time for that. But yeah, because I miss the excitement of films and everything, and I haven't seen everything, and there's so many things that resonate with other people, and you want to know why. Like, why did you love that? Why did you watch that 17 times? So, speaking of, for this interview, I had to again watch All Quiet on the Western Front, and oof, it's a rough watch, man. I don't know. It's like just every second I think I'll never let my kids go to war. But I do have a fantastic little interview here for you with Ernestine Hipper, who is really on a streak. All Quiet on the Western Front and Tar. I mean, it's fantastic. So on this episode, I speak with set decorator Ernestine Hipper, who is nominated this year for Best Production Design for her work on the film All Quiet on the Western Front. She has been nominated this awards season for the ADG and the BAFTA, and nominated for an ADG and won the SDSA award for her decoration of Tar. So she's really hitting it out of their ballpark. The dramatic differences in her work in these 2 films in 1 year show the scope of her enormous talent, but it also shows how versatile a set decorator's career can be. I think that's really important too, and we talk a little bit about that. She was so kind to speak with me. She's in Thailand. She's being eaten by mosquitoes while we're talking. And she's genuinely just humble and grateful, and the recognition of her peers. She was super excited about the awards. So it was humbling for me to get a chance to speak with her, especially with the schedule that she has. And yeah, so I hope you enjoy. Which is always for the Oscars, I believe.
I think also production designers vote for us, no?
Yeah, I think it's just your peer group votes for that category.
Oh my God. Yeah, but see, this all of my fellow nominees are like my idols. I mean, Jesus, Rick Potter. I mean,
I know.
All of these people, it's like, oh my God, I've been watching the movies for 20 years. They're my heroes.
I know.
So surreal to be my name even on the same page with them, So I'm really, really just very honored and grateful, more than grateful, to be honest, this way. And I don't need to win it because it is enough. To be honest, it is truly enough to get this much attention and to get this for me. We never ever thought we would get anything, really.
God,
that's my Netflix now regrets it because I didn't even have a making of team, or they didn't have a set photographer. They didn't have any of this because I thought this is just going to go on streaming and that's it.
Well, I talk about that a lot, about like the letdown. That's kind of a letdown when you work for streaming and it's released and you're like,
yeah.
Poof, like it's kind of like, oh.
Yeah, but when Netflix saw the rushes and saw what this movie is going to be,
mm-hmm.
They said, oh my God, we better get this thing on cinemas so maybe we get some attention because it's worth it.
Oh, yeah.
But this all happened behind our backs. We just figured it's one for streaming. It's straight for Netflix. It'll go straight on the streaming, how do you say this? Dienst.
Yes.
And that's good.
But...
And that's why we were only 8 Germans who in the art department who made this movie.
That's insane. That's insane to me. Because one of my questions is, you must have had an army. I can't even believe how much you guys produced for sets for this.
We had 380 Czech people working for us. But it was 8, I had my assistants, but the production designer had an art director that he brought along. The prop master brought his assistant. And we had one art department coordinator, German, who took over the German part,
Mm-hmm.
And the rest was all Czechs. I mean, we were like all together, maybe including costume and makeup, maybe 20 people.
Oh, wow. That is crazy.
Yes. And it is a language barrier because you cannot learn Czech. There's no way you're ever going to learn this language. You have to live there. It's a very hard language to learn. So you live in your 7 people bubble, and Czechs, the younger ones, of course, speak English now, but the older ones don't. So
right.
You work with translators, and lost in translation is always a that can cause problems. But I mean, it all had a really, really incredible art department coordinator, Katka van Gemund, and my lead man, Petre Marouche, was incredible. He really had to direct 65 people once in a while.
Yeah.
And we were in the middle of the pandemic. So Prague was closed down. Prague was locked in a lockdown.
Oh. I was wondering when you did this, because I didn't know if you'd started it right after pandemic but you did it during. Oh my gosh.
For how much time we had set the head for this movie, you won't believe it. I started 3 weeks before Christmas doing research and calculations.
Uh-huh.
At that point, they still were negotiating with Netflix production, how they're going to, it's all about budgets and money and to make the deal.
Yeah.
Because of the weather, we had to they had to start filming by the middle of February, otherwise the ground would have melted, and then you have greens everywhere and flowers, and you don't want this on a war field.
Right.
So we had limitations towards the time of the year when the war field had to be shot. So they started digging the trenches in November, not really knowing if the contract would be done, you know. And we did research and we did calculations, and we spent Christmas not really knowing, do we do this now or not? And then we got a call. You start on the 4th of January. We started shooting on the 15th of February. We had 10 weeks.
You only had 10 weeks?
10 weeks. And it was Brexit. Prague was in a complete lockdown. I couldn't leave the country because I didn't know whether I can come back in the country because of, you know,
right.
the pandemic. And so we were, when I opened all of these locations, you wrote there, we shot in 3 different countries. We didn't. We only shot in Czech Republic.
Oh.
And I can, you know, I can send you photos too, so you understand. It was, we shot it at a Russian airfield called Milovice. And next to it,
I saw that. One thing, I saw that because I watched a thing with the DP, and he had a ton of pictures and aerials that shot down, and I saw it was like, they said 10 football fields long or something. Like, it was incredible.
Yeah, when I walked on this for the first time, I said, Christian, what? In 10 weeks, you must be out of your mind. And he went like, you're going to do it. And I went like, you must be out of your mind. How are we going to do this? You know, he said, we're going to do it. Let's do it. And then we just, because of the pandemic, I guess, we just, I stopped. I went straight into work.
Right.
My assistant was an early bird, starts at 5:36 in the morning. I start at 8. He stops at 6. I go until 8, 9 o'clock. So we got this many hours out of the day. You know, actually, Ingo had to be on the warfield for 4 weeks, and I would be sending him every day 4 trucks of material. We had 400 of these ex-Czechs or Spanish riders.
Did you have them made, or you found them?
Everything was made. Piece except for some ammunition boxes were made on this movie.
That's what I was saying. I mean, the quantity that you needed for that whole set, and then with the period and the aging and everything, like, I was just assuming you have to make all this. I don't even know how you would make all that within 10 weeks. Make it and dress it in and then age it in place. That's not enough time.
There was a lot of pressure, but you know what? It's harder to decorate a period piece where you have to order lamps and they have 12 weeks delivery time, where you order fabrics, where you order, you know, it was debris. So we would buy, I only had 2 buyers, by the way, 2 buyers.
Wow. Did any of them speak the language, or they both spoke German?
Well, a little bit English. One buyer spoke really well English. He's very young. Well, they were all Czech.
They were Czech. Oh, I see. Oh.
We ran around with trucks going to farms and just buying things, you know. And then we would take them apart in our workshop and burn them and, you know, paint them and take all the nails out so nobody would get hurt when they touch it. Because when you're on the warfield and somebody tries to move something, there's a nail sticking out. I don't want to be in charge for having somebody being hurt. So this was my biggest consideration, to be honest. Safety. Amongst this monster of having all the barbed wire.
Yeah.
The little pikes were rubber. I had this. There's a funny story behind it. In 2016, I was working for a movie called Euphoria, and I went to London. I was at the trading post, and I saw these guys gluing this, you know, spikes, these tips on wire. endless amounts of wire with a hot glue gun. And I went like, oh my God, what is this? Yeah, we're working for 1917 and this is the wire. And I went like, of course, you cannot have real barbed wire because it falls and, you can't, it has to be, of course,
you're right.
So I asked him to take one of these little spikes as a memory. So I have a piece of 1917 with me. And when I started this movie, I looked in my work bag and I found it and I went like, oh my God.
It was meant to be. That was meant to be. That was...
Please, Angeles, I have a piece of your... He was a decorator in 1917. I have a piece of your decoration. Thank you. Yeah, to make the wire, it took 12 weeks. So this is one thing I told them before Christmas, whatever happens, if you don't order the wire now, we won't be having it to be able to shoot. So you have to, and I ordered it immediately.
And that's the other thing I want to know. Did you have to redress some of the tunnels while they were shooting to make it look like No. Once it was dressed, that at least you had like...
Everything. Edward and James, they've been, everybody except for me, the prop master and wardrobe and costume, they sat together for weeks talking every single scene through. Mm-hmm. So every single scene was scripted to, in terms of what costume grading, beginning of the movie, a year later, because Felix had 25 different costumes in different kind of stages. At the beginning of the movie, back down and his helmet had a hole, remember at the beginning he didn't have that and he almost got shot. So every single scene was choreographed through with every department. And so every angle of the warfield was also catalogized. Mm-hmm. Yes. So we knew exactly where this would take place, which operator, which crane, which stunt would happen there. And that's the way they shot it, because they had to shoot it in 6 weeks. They had to shoot all the warfield scenes in 6 weeks. And they were so under pressure because you start in the morning at 4 or 5 o'clock. And, it was winter, so you don't have many hours. Right. The sun goes down around 5-ish. And so they just...
That's really mind-blowing to me that they had that much pressure on themselves. And then, and that other thing I read, he only shot one camera. He didn't do, like, simultaneous cameras at the same time.
When you have a big budget, you have 4 cameras. No.
That's crazy.
This wasn't a big budget movie. It looks like one.
It looks like one. I mean, the production value that you have given in the designer and lighting, like, this looks like a 1970 like huge film. I'm not joking. I'm saying I'm blown away that you'd had that much prep. Blown away. I can't. I would have walked out. I would have been like, bye. I can't do that.
To be honest, I didn't even want to do it. I didn't want to do this movie because it's out of my comfort zone. I love children movies. I love comedies. I love fairy tales. I love what site decorators love. Fiddly, fuddly, fiddly. Yes. Biographs, no action, please. No cars. Yeah. And stunts.
Montages, no. Action montages is like my nightmare.
But because of the pandemic, I mean, you had to sort of take what's coming.
Yeah.
None of us can afford to be not working for a whole year. So yeah, this was out. And plus Christian said, you're the only one I can imagine who can pull it off in that short of a time.
Well, he was right. That's a compliment, but he was right. I mean, it's fantastic.
I struggled very much so, because when I read the script, to answer your question, mm-hmm. Germans have to read this book in school. It's like a piece. It's first of all, our generation, what our grandfathers or grandparents did, it's still a heavy weight on our shoulders because it's part of our history, just like you Americans have the history too,
Yeah.
which we cannot erase. So to bring this into our consciousness, every kid in school has to read this book.
Oh.
You know,
How old are
really
you when you have to read it?
finish
With
10, 10
10,
12-ish.
12?
Yeah.
Because I
I
I can't I don't know what I was I don't know what I was reading at 10, 12, but it wasn't that heavy. But I watched heavy movies, but I mean like I don't know. That's reading
no,
something is deeper in your brain than watching something, I think. When you're because your mind is doing it instead of the
it's not about German lecture. We have to read this book. And of course, I watched the movie when I was younger later on because
yeah.
you just watch it. Yeah. And so when I read the script, I was crying. I went like, I can't do this. I don't want to have this in my system for 6 months or something. Because
Yeah.
once you're in a movie, you dig in, you dive in the history, you dive into details, you try to become an emotional sponge,
Yeah.
so you can later put this emotion back into your set. That's how I feel when I work.
Yeah.
I suck it all up, and then my brain starts doing something, and then I pick things and have ideas, and that's how, for me, that's how I do my own set decoration.
Yeah.
Um, and I said to Christian, I can't do it. Emotionally, I won't be able to pull it through because I'm too soft for this. I don't want to have this 6 months in my system, this evilness and the darkness and the pain and the crucial side of, well, any war is crucial anyways. But after a while, he pulled me in, showed me all the photos. Seeing the real photos was even worse. I mean, seeing these poor kids
Ugh.
being slaughtered, being cannon food. I mean, when you see these images, it is.
Yeah.
So I thought about it for a while, and and my family came up with, come on, just treat it as a documentary. You have to see it as a documentary, a really well-made documentary, because a war like this will never, ever happen again. A war in the trenches, under those circumstances, will never happen again. And that was actually my trick, to trick me away from the emotions. And I said, okay, it's a documentary. I try to do it as good as possible. I try to make it look as real as possible. Yes, yes, yes. And so I was able to get the distance from all the. But when I saw the rushes and when I saw Felix, I remember the first part of the rushes. I wasn't in the cinema, and I worked on the movie, and I was starting to cry. Oh my God, this kid is amazing.
Yeah.
This actor is amazing. We were like, oh my God. Whatever I tried to trick myself, it backlashed me.
War movies are so hard and so important because people who have never experienced war need to know what people are fighting for and what they're doing. And I always think war movies are history and showing people what this was and why they were doing it. And this story about him being so naive and his friends and thinking, I know that's how so many, they were so into it. So they wanted to be there. But the reality that hits him and seeing his friends one by one die is just so heartbreaking. It's such an amazing story.
Back then, around the century change, that's how it was. You had to fight for your country. I mean, Korea, all the places, you fight for your country, America, you fight for your country. But back then, it was all propaganda, because whatever came to those cities, the newspapers didn't really show or tell the true stories. They always, victory and victory and victory and the great nation. And so those kids didn't really know nobody knew what war was, except for the ones who came back with a missing face, half of the face and legs and arms missing. And then when they told the stories, nobody would believe him. They went like, ah, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
because you wouldn't really. This was the first anti-war book ever in history, and that's why it's such an important book.
Yeah.
And Hitler, of course, banned it. They burned all of his books. And
I think too, when they show those credits and then you're reading and like 17 million people died in the war, you can't fathom like the
26 million grenades have been built.
it's
26 million grenades
that's
filled
insane.
with metal parts, splinter grenades. I mean, can you imagine what they do to humans when they hit?
No, and there's such incredible
wars ever, really.
No.
It was horrible.
There's such
They only 10 kilometers. They didn't go far.
I know they didn't even go far. They didn't even make much progress.
8 kilometers.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
No, it's the sin. It's the sin. There are such poignant scenes in this too, of his view of what's happened. Like when that tank rolls over the trench is incredible. Or that last scene when the war's about to end and they're still called into war. Like it's just.
But this is true. It really happened.
I know it's mind blowing. It's mind blowing because I was like, whoa, I would have stayed back. I would have run really slow and then tripped and tried to play dead or something. My uncle was in the Korean War and he actually pulled a body over his friend's body over him and played dead. And they came around and stabbed all the bodies and missed him. And I mean, I think about that every time I watch a war movie of like, I can't believe I know someone who survived something like this. It's crazy. It's awful. And then to have to build that into your dressing of how long they have been here, like that layer that you've given it of he's not the first soldier there. Like this has been there, and they've just the lived-in value of that trench and everything. I thought was like really great in telling the story of them, living in this mud.
Yeah, but there are incredible images out there, so you can really copy as much as possible and make it. It was more the challenge of where do I get the stuff from?
Yeah.
How do I get the item? Because you know what you need, but how do I get it? Also budget-wise,
so frustrating.
My budget. You're gonna laugh. Americans, that would first think how we should do this. But I was lucky. I rented out a whole prop house because they were short of money because of the pandemic. They didn't have much business, so I said, "Come on, flat deal. I take all of your costumes." It was a military prop house. Take all of your things, even if they are Second World War. Yeah, I have to, because First World War things are really, really hard to get. Yeah. Everything is in a museum. You can't. The original things you find in museums. We had to cheat. So we had 500 ammunition boxes. They were actually Russian. Mm-hmm. But we painted them in this First World War color. Because the French had their own green. The Germans had a certain bluish green. The Second World War had a different color. I mean, they really had color codes. I didn't know this. I had to find out they had a specific color for the vehicles to be painted, for the ammunition to be painted. So I used that kind of color to help myself to cheat around, that I didn't have many original things. And plus I was able to get one truck out of London with items that were on 1917. Again, thank you, Lee Sandelis. You don't see them, but they're all dressed in. Yeah. But at least I was able to get some things back here, and we had a couple of how do you call this, horses that are half shells. Oh. Dead horses.
Oh yeah, I was wondering about that, if that was like
you lift them. You can
Like
carry them like
fiberglass.
this.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they were half. So
Yeah.
you mud them in and you bloody them in, and they look really real though.
It's funny to me when you're describing this because there's things that you do that I don't in Los Angeles. Like I don't think horses would be me. I think that would be props because they handle like animals and dead animals and stuff. And then like car painting cars and stuff. I don't do that either.
In Europe, props is actually only doing props for the actors. Anything an actor or an extra touches is props. Anything around is set decoration. Even ammunition laying around, standing around is set decoration. Lamps, lights. I mean, if there's a dead horse laying there, it's set decoration. If a dead horse is being shot and an actor is leaning against it, then it's props, you know?
Oh, yeah. I guess you're right. I guess I've never done dead horses. I guess I just assumed.
I mean, they tricked me with the big cannons, you know? Because in one scene, it was the last battle when the soldiers would go back on the battlefield.
Right.
You see 4 huge cannons there, World War I cannons. And they're not firing. They were just empty, you know, staying there. And I was told, well, these cannons must be vehicles, you know, because there's in between. Sometimes it's also vehicles.
Yeah.
Because they have to move. And I said, no, they're just standing around, they're props. And then props said, no, they're set decoration because we're not touching them. So they ended back on my table. And of course, there are a couple in Poland in the museum, there are a couple in Germany in the museum. And just to get them there, plus you're not able to touch them and muddy them up and, you know, whatever. If there's a scratch on them, you're fired or
worse.
So I had them built. I had them built out of plastic tubes, and I send you photos.
Oh my God.
So I had them built and then set on set.
And when did you get that note? Hopefully not the 2 days before. I hope you had some time.
It wasn't a long period. It was 2-3 weeks. So but you know, construction guys love to build toys like this. They were really into it.
Yeah,
they love.
Well, I'm sure they built so many ladders and X's and beams.
With 180 ladders built, we had, I don't know, 400 X. We had 7,000 or 9,000 sandbags. I still can't
the sandbags.
I think at least 7,000 sandbags we had made.
I was thinking of the sandbags. I was thinking of all those sewing machines in the very beginning.
Yeah, 50 sewing machines. Those were all from collectors. Mm-hmm. And the ladies had to learn how to pedal. We didn't have any thread in them. Otherwise, it would have been a big mess. So they just pretended.
I was thinking of the sound guy must have hated that.
But... nice sound. Yeah. It's not.
I think it too. I was the coffin scene in the beginning. I was like, oh, that's a lot of coffins too. I was wondering if I'm sure you had those built because.
Yeah, they're easy to build. Just paint them. And I had an idea. You know, I didn't. Well, in the real war, they would just throw the corpses in. You know, in a hole.
On my grave.
And I said, we can't do that. It's too much at the beginning. You know, it's too much. So let's take coffins. At that time, they wouldn't have had coffins.
Mm.
So plus, I wanted some markings on them with numbers or which grade of soldier he would have been, with chalk written on, to have a bit of a, you know, feel for the coffin. So each coffin also had to be to personalize them a bit. Yeah. And this huge pile of wardrobe you saw there.
Yeah.
There's a huge
the bags.
It was just a shell. I had it built, and it was just it was chicken wire, and it was just on top. Okay. But again, all the blooding and all the mudding, these 2 little hands made. Oh. I mean,
you got to get in there. You got to get dirty sometimes. But that's
it was all fake blood. I didn't care. We had 7 or 8 who had to go through I had to go through a wound lecture. Which wound causes which kind of blood
Oh,
and
wow.
color? Yes.
I say it all the time of as set decorators, we're so lucky because look, I mean, on every project you're on, you just dive in and we research so much and we learn things we would never would have known. If like I'm not sitting here having off one day and think like, well, I'm gonna take a bone, I'm gonna take a wound survey or something like you never would have done it. And I think that's one of the best parts of our little world is the education that we get of all these different subjects and periods, and you really gotta love to learn and research for us.
Yeah, but I was never able to get a husband and kids because
Yeah.
how can you do it when you work?
Well, I'll tell you what, I I asked a lot of people, I asked a lot of decorators, and they always told me, the ones who had kids, you just figure it out. You just figure it out. And I was blessed and found a man and got pregnant, I don't know how, and then I had twins and
Oh, lovely.
I work and I have twins and I'm exhausted. So I don't know how to do it either because the balancing of it is really hard, but you make it work, but it is hard. You do, because I know what type of personality we have to be, and you don't want to let anything slip through the cracks in either world. So it is really hard, and it's really, I mean, I never traveled with work. I always, and even now, like, I'm never going to be able to travel. Like, look at, you're in Thailand. Like, that's amazing. You mean
No,
you,
I constantly travel. Just
yeah,
see, when the pandemic started, I was 4 months in Spain doing a movie.
right.
Went straight to Berlin, where I don't live. I live in Munich. I live down south. And then from that, I went to Czech Republic for 5 months. I think we shot this movie in 5 months.
Wow.
And I had 10 days off in Spain, just sitting on the beach. I was like numbed. I was really numb. I was like, uh,
Yeah.
this was physically, this movie really was to my physical limits.
Yeah.
And I got a call, a movie's up with Todd Field and Kate Blanchett. And I went like, I cannot turn this down. You cannot turn down a movie with Todd
No.
Field and Kate
No.
Blanchett. You just simply can't.
You can't. You can't. You can't. I have fear of turning anything down. I get really scared to turn things down. I get fear of missing out syndrome. But that you can't turn. You can't turn that down. Todd Fields.
No,
I mean,
and I mean, he's a legend, and Kate Blanchett is one of my most favorite actresses on the planet.
yeah.
I mean, she is a superstar. She is my, and I went like, okay, pack your suitcase, bye-bye sun, bye-bye beach, going back to Berlin. And then I was in Berlin for another 5 months. So this year I actually worked for 6 months. I worked through with a 10-day break.
Oh.
And luckily, those two movies are now hitting every award I've ever. I'm like, what is going on here?
It's a hell of a streak. You hit a hell of a streak here, I gotta say. It's pretty good.
22 years. None of this ever happened to me. So what is going on?
But you're the only one that ties them together. Yep.
And Americans go crazy because they think, oh my God, how can you do a period 1970 movie and a slick,
because you're talented. That's why. Because
in Germany you have to do everything. You cannot specialize.
Right.
You don't have a chance to specialize in Europe. You have to do what comes up. And then so over the years, I was in the commercial business for 10 years. Then the commercial business, you have to decorate a set in one day,
Yeah.
You don't have this time. And so after all these years, I had to do everything. So I sort of, the war thing was missing. But,
yeah, it's, that's what I love about it. I love, being able to work on a drama and a comedy in the same year, or that I love that. I think, like, I can't even imagine doing, because I mostly do TV, I can't imagine doing 22 episodes of a season. Like, I'm so thankful that they're only like 10 episodes or something, because I want to I got to get out of it because it's such a deep dive and I want to do something else. I want to keep going, keep moving on. But for you to deep dive so hard into a war and then do this modern piece is pretty fantastic. The opportunity and everything is fantastic.
A very special director.
Yeah.
Because Todd Field is a very special person.
Yeah.
I mean, he is.
And he hasn't been around. He hasn't been around for a while either. He's taken a long break.
I don't know what happened, why he was gone for so long.
I don't know either.
He's so brilliant. Yeah. His mind is I think I've never ever imagined that a director is like this. He's very. I love to work for him. For me, it was great joy.
Yeah.
Everybody else was sort of not understanding him, I think. They were like, what does he want? Because the script was very hard to read. If you read the script, you don't get the story.
Well, I read an article that he wrote it over COVID and then came up. Yeah. And then was like, all right, I want to make this movie. And they only had a certain time to do it. And then they rushed it in or something. Did they rushed it to get it done because of her schedule, I believe?
Yeah, I think of Kate. I mean, she was in 80% or 90% of the movie. She was in it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, mosquito hitting me.
Oh no.
They're everywhere. Yeah.
I wouldn't do well there. I don't think. You're making me itchy.
No, they don't make sound. They're friendly, polite mosquitoes. Yeah. But they eat you. No, Kate came on set, and she's extremely intelligent. To me, it's mind-blowing. She would walk on set, do the take 2-3 times, completely together with Todd, and she'd do that for 8 hours straight through with a tiny break.
Wow.
Not stop. Every day. So I normally, superstars like her come for 3, 4, 5 days shooting and then they go back home. And so she was away from her children and her husband quite a lot. And I think she suffered very much staying, away from her family. She loves her family.
Did she or did Todd, did they have any influence of or recommendations or wants for her, especially her childhood home or her apartments?
Well, in her childhood home, it was actually scripted. That her upbringing was in Staten Island, that you smelled the garbage, the Smurf,
Oh, yeah.
And actually, her parents were supposed to be hearing impaired. That's why her hearing was supposed to be so sensible. But it all sort of then got lost because there was no way to show it. And so, I started nugged, Todd, come on, give me more food. Tell me, what are her grandparents? How were the Russians, were the Hungarians? How did they come to Staten Island? Because in Staten Island, originated, again, I had to dig into the history of Staten Island. To make a story, you have to create people's past and, a psychogram, I would call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where they come from, how many relatives is there? What are the relatives? What is this? Are the parents still alive? How was the father? Was he a nice guy? Was he a violent guy? Was he an abusive guy? You have to make this kind of psychogram to start thinking how the apartment could look like. And so Todd came up with all these informations like Hungarian background and making up this and hearing impairing and this and that. And so I started getting mood boards made with trying to find some, Hungarian influences and textiles and little knickknacks and things that could have inherited and photos on the wall. And that's how Staten Island actually happened. Plus, it had to be the low, it had to show the sort of basic standard of living, working class.
Yeah.
It's a bad word, but you know what I mean?
No, that's yeah. And that's a lot of
Not, up,
Staten
not,
Island too.
not upscale.
Yeah.
Just not upscale people. And that's to show her background and where her biggest how do you call this, lack of confidence actually came. And that's why she started tricking herself into the world to become more. So it all happened. That's where it originated. And that she was also always she had to fight for everything. She was a hockey player. There's a lot of scenes that are actually cut out. But I think Todd said he's going to make a director's cut where he's going to put everything back in that we shot, because he shot so much more, which actually would have, really helped the story also to tell a bit more about the fall.
Yeah.
But it must have been a reason because of the timing of the movie that they couldn't, because it would have been more than 3 hours anyways.
I do think that she has a great performance. I think everyone in the movie has a great performance. I kept waiting for something more to happen, because we keep going back and forth, and then you're like, is this a dream?
Well, it was there. It was all there. We shot it. Todd shot it all.
Yeah.
So I it's not. I don't know why it was cut or why it wasn't shown. It's there must be studio reasons. You never know.
Yeah,
it's
too many cooks in the kitchen. That's what it is. It's
Kate also. She's a producer on it, so you never know.
Yeah.
So he's going to make a director's cut, and then you're going to see it all.
I would watch it. I would see it again because, in looking at your work, and I read an article with him, and he described a ton, as you are, and I was like, well, I would have liked that movie much better.
Because when you see the first trailer, that's how the movie was. And it, I don't know, it's, when I watched it, I went like, this is not what the script is and what happened. But I wait for the director's cut.
Yeah.
I think Todd, in a way, I think he's, you never know. He's probably struggling, should have done it, should have not, should have left it this way. Nobody ever even thought that Todd would go like this either.
I do think, though, in watching, I saw these movies and then I watched them again this week, ready to talk to you, that there's cinematically the frames and the work and your sets, they really kept wide in a lot of scenes, like her apartment and like on the battlefield, like just these wides, or that dining table scene in Quiet, of just that room and that dining table of two people on the ends. Like, cinematically, your work really shows, and they really showed a lot of it. It's so fantastic to not like get smaller and smaller every, third frame or something. And it was beautiful to watch. I mean, that's the dream, to work with good DPs for me. That's my dream.
James Friend is so lovely. And also Florian Hofmeister. I mean, Florian is also nominated for an Oscar. Yeah. And James as well. So it's,
I know.
It's a tough one.
It is. That's a tough category, that one.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ego involved, and these people don't have, they're wonderful, they're lovely. Mm-hmm. Really lovely also towards us. I mean, you can sort of go to Florian and say, how do you want your lighting? Should we dress more? Shall we help you there? And he would be just absolutely together. Some DPs are very pushy.
Yeah.
It can be.
Yeah, they can.
Also the complaining kind. No, these two are not the complaining kind. They're just the most loveliest people I've ever met. Really.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I think too, when the decorator and the DP have like such a good relationship too, it makes each other's job easier. But it's also when you can when you really know what they want, you can tune into that, and because you want it to be what they want, to make it better and to light it and everything. Like, I think that's such a important relationship when you work with them to produce such great lit scenes, because it's all us now. It's all practicals. It's all practicals.
And now it's practicals and colors, and now and structures and textures. And the more they tell us what atmosphere they want to create, we can jump into it and help them, with what we can find on the market. Yeah. But no, it was extreme from one movie to the other. And the biggest challenge of Tar was clearance. Clearance.
Of all the books?
No, not all the books. Clearance was... we have less... our clearance rights in Europe, I guess, are not as strict as the ones you have in the States.
We're so afraid of a lawsuit here. You can't even play a board game in the background without it being, like, blacked out. It's ridiculous.
I mean, in Tar, just imagining a place like Kami, Columbia Arts Management, blah, blah, blah. Todd wanted the real Kami. And we were like, okay, we're trying to get, to contact them, but they're bankrupt. So how do you get the person, because of COVID, that went into bankruptcy, who will give us rights to use the original name? And our clearance, we had one lady working in Germany, Nicole, and we had one lady working for Focus Features in California, Ashley. They tried, and they finally did manage to get the rights to use Kami. But then every poster on the wall, Kami is like, they have a huge range of artists.
Yeah.
So Todd again wanted the real Kami items. So to get the rights for each poster on the wall from Kami, which doesn't exist anymore, finding the owner of the posters and the rights, I can show you a wide shot of the Kami conference room. In the movie, you only see three, four posters in the background, right, of the concerts. But we had everything cleared. It was in Sebastian's room when she fired Sebastian.
Right.
The Kapellmeister, this older orchestra guy.
Yes.
Who every single piece of photo has been cleared in this place.
Oh my God.
It has been either scouted on iStock or I can send you the board of Tar, which was an ADG. We had the magazine stand, when she runs to get her magazine.
Magazine stands are so expensive.
She was supposed to run by, actually, behind a wall with her being famous, and then a wall of her being down, down, down. Just to make these two big walls of her with real magazines, with People magazine and international and German ones, we had to get the right from all the magazines to use the name. Then we had to create the covers. There was one person for 5 weeks only doing that. That's all he did, was one graphic designer doing those magazines. And then at the end, it didn't even show.
Yeah.
And so clearance was the biggest challenge on Tar. The rest was just getting furniture together, which kind of, fit to a character, try to hide what she really wanted, or show what she wanted to be, like a pretending stage. Her office is like a pretender kind of stage. You don't feel her, it's just decorated. You don't feel a person there.
It's just those two pieces of art are very interesting, though, to me, of what, if she's trying to be so perfect in everything. I couldn't tell what they were. It's a little boy playing violin, actually. Now
it's a lady playing violin, but her wife is she tried to start an affair with a cellist.
Oh.
She's not
Right.
playing the violin and the cello. And that's why it shows those pictures. It shows us to show a little her intriguing connection to her, how do you call this, vanity.
Yeah. And so many books. Like, I was like both of her apartments, her child's room, her and then her young room, she had a ton of books. I kept thinking, like, oh my god, there's so many books here. I can't. It's like,
I was lucky those books were in the shelves already.
oh, that's
I couldn't
good.
have.
Well, look, it's a good thing you didn't have to clear them all. At least they were all facing the seams, because
It would have not against them. Todd said we're gonna do it visually, visual effect showing, because I told him I cannot clear all these books.
No.
There's no way.
No.
And I can't redress them all, because I mean, these people who live there have a certain, in a way, how they're displayed, that I wouldn't even want to touch. I didn't even want to touch them.
Yeah, I've undressed a lot of people's bookshelves, and we have to put them back exactly so. And if not, they call locations, and they know if one book is out of place, and that's fine. But you don't need to call and tell on us. Just put the book back. I don't know, but yes, I was wondering about that, because it's so many books, and it also is such a character thing. There's no way you could read that many books. Like, for her, I just felt like it was like a facade.
If you see the director's cut, you will, the missing link why they live in a place like this is missing, because it shows really how wealthy she is. Before, there's something missing.
But yeah,
cut.
It's missing. It's missing.
And you don't know whether it's, her wife's apartment. It doesn't. But did you know that conductors make about 20 million per year? I didn't know that.
No, I wouldn't. I thought. I was like, I just kept thinking, oh, is she making a lot of money because she works in all the different countries and she's not just one place? Like, I was trying to figure out too, like, how she's on all of the covers, or how is she, like, because in our society, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if any conductor would really be that big, like on People and Architectural Digest and like all of them at one time. Like, you got to be a superstar.
This was a bit over there.
Yeah, but it's storytelling. It's just a matter of storytelling. But no, in reality, I had no idea that conductors made that much.
I didn't either until I read about it, until I found out that they make at least 20, 25 mil. I mean, Ernestine made, and it's all out of record deals. They make plus on top. It's all, they really make a lot of money. But there are only, how many famous conductors do you have? We have 5 or 6 in the world, that we all know.
Maybe I'll push one of these little ones into that. It doesn't. They're obsessed with Beethoven 5 right now, so go ahead. Da, 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 da. They walk around the house all day. Da, 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 da. I'm like, oh my god, this is like a nightmare. Da, 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 da. So maybe they'll get into it.
You can be a conductor without going to music school. I mean, I didn't know that either. You don't have to have you don't have to study music, and become a violinist. You have to you can learn being a conductor at the Juilliard, to be honest.
Well, there you go. Get going, boys. Get going. Go make some money so I can retire.
Every weekends, every evening in a concert hall, and Saturday, Sundays, New Year's, Christmas evenings, you spend somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, Kate really learned how to conduct with a professional conductor. She wanted to learn really how this works. So for months, she worked and she worked and she worked. And when she walked on stage with the Dresden Philharmonic, with those musicians, she, of course, that's the way she is. She walked up there and she said, well, I'm here, the actor, and you have to support me. So if I do something wrong, please help me. I need you. Without you, I'm not gonna be able to perform here. We are a team. And that's, of course, the musicians went boom for her.
Well,
Then she started conducting, and she went like, and those guys haven't been playing for a while because of the pandemic. And she went like boom, boom, boom. And then she went like, stop, you're out of, you're not on. And they were laughing because she was right. She heard
she's
it that they
amazing.
are not on tune. Spectacular.
Well, you really have to have an ear for that. I mean, she
Yes.
really has to be.
She's hyper intellectual, believe me. She's really, really super intellectual. She's one of a kind.
Wow.
Okay, it's one of a kind.
I do love everything she does. Everything. I mean, I'm a huge fan of hers. Is why. Did you hear the mosquitoes? Poor thing was getting like eaten alive. But I'm so thankful that she had time to give me and talk about this, because I just can't believe the amount of time of prep that she didn't have. And also, I didn't get to talk to her about that blue train car. I really wanted to talk about the train car and all the fixtures they had in there and the color of the blue, and it must have been all, custom made, and it's such a contrast from the rest of the film. But I dropped the ball on that one, guys, sorry. And the rest of, there was like a big conference table and the etching on the glass of the windows, and everything was just so beautiful in there. I do want to say there was a couple great articles that I read in prep for this interview. One about the visual effects of the film and where the visual effects starts and the set ends. There's a great little movie on VFXexpress.com. All Quiet on the Western Front breakdown by Netflix. It's a great little couple-minute video of the green screens and how the set worked with VFX. The other one I did was the ASC.com, and cinematographer Eric Messerschmidt interviewed I gotta find his name, James Friend, the cinematographer on All Quiet, and they talked for over an hour on this. It's on their website, and he has great pictures that they integrate of just his sets and them shooting, so that was super helpful in preparing for this. And for Tar, I read, I think it was on Condé Nast, with the director about the film. And I know I lend to that after reading the article, I really felt like, oh, that was a good movie, but that's not what I watched. So, if you want to like Tar, maybe read that article. I don't know. But yeah. But again, thank you to her. Good luck, good luck, good luck. That's my vote. I know Babylon's probably gonna swoop in, which is great. It's all great. The work is fantastic. There's nothing nominated that you're like, what? It's all great. And that's how you always feel. Like, God, it's so much work. Look at what they're accomplishing in the time frames, and think about budgets and everything. So yeah, bravo to her and everyone else, and good luck at the Oscars this week. How exciting. It's so exciting. Also, trying to get, I can't believe how busy I am and I'm not working. Trying to get a couple videos out. I'm going to try to do one of her work I'll put up on TikTok, and we always have the postings on IG just to keep you current. And so follow, like, please review. It's so much bullshit with these reviews, but you gotta ask for them. So please review on whatever listening platform you are listening to. I would greatly appreciate it. So I hope you got an earful. I'm Kim Wanup for Decorating Pages.
Welcome to Pro Tips for the Pros, brought to you by Floor & Decor Bailey's Crossroads. In this series, we'll explore essential advice for professional contractors to deliver outstanding renovation results. Let's dive in. After completing the renovation, follow up with the customer to ensure their satisfaction and address any remaining concerns. Provide maintenance tips and guidance to help them preserve the results of the renovation for years to come. Thank you for joining us for this pro tip on planning thorough renovations. Stay tuned for more expert advice brought to you by Floor & Decor Bailey's Crossroads.
A lot of people tolerate ordinary. Ordinary bathrooms, kitchens, entryways. Well, not on your watch. If you're a pro, you've got a new partner in town. Floor & Decor. From tile to wood to stone, Floor & Decor has more styles and job lot quantities of Schluter, Mapei, Laticrete, and other brands pros trust. Come see a whole new way to wow with Floor & Decor. Coming soon to Bailey's Crossroads.